Tawni, welcome to the Les Lounge.
Thank you.
Did I say it right? The Les Lounge.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
Do you just feel like there is no air left to breathe? Do you?
Welcome to the Les Lounge. Today our guest is Tawni, and we are in a new setting. It's a beautiful day in Southern California. Hopefully the wind won't pick up too much. What we usually like to do is start our conversation out by getting a little bit about your background.
Sure.
In a nutshell, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, wow. Easy parts. I'm 62 years old. I'm a transgender woman. My attraction is to women, therefore, lesbian. I'm what's called a late transitioner. In other words, I transitioned in my started my transition in my early to mid 50s.
Okay.
And
So it's been about 10 years?
yeah, like eight or nine in
Okay.
transition. Yeah.
Okay.
What brings me here today is, I think as all of us have in this, in this big rainbow space, so to speak, is that, my voyage has been just coming to terms with myself, coming to terms with really, truly who I am. And that involves a lot of things, obviously.
Right.
So that gives us lots to talk about.
Oh, a ton of things to talk about. But I think one of the things that men, women, gay women, trans women have in common is that we all grew up in a place and time, and that affects how we feel about ourselves, how safe we feel in our environment, and how safe we feel coming out, or maybe that keeps us from coming out. So can you tell me a little bit about like when you were a kid, what kind of environment was that?
Sure. Actually, I was born here. I was born in Pasadena.
Okay.
My father was a professor of mechanical engineering at Caltech. And so obviously I'm 62, we can figure the math, so I'll leave the year out.
We can do the math.
Exactly. But anyway, I grew up at a time when there's no information about anything. I think at a young time, though it's not part of my conscious memories, at a very young age I knew I was different. But there's something to reconcile because I'm different, but my whole environment is something else. So I think even at a young age, I started adapting to that my reality is so much different than what I felt. So I just, in terms of how I felt about myself, I think somewhere at a very young age, I felt like whatever I feel, it's not right.
It's not right. You're categorizing it as not right. Did you feel like it was something that you needed to hide?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
for my own protection.
At such a young age, we are conditioned, boys like trucks and girls like dolls, and boys wear blue and girls wear pink. Thinking back, hindsight being 2020, do you feel like there was ever like a disconnect with what was expected of you as a boy and what you preferred as a girl?
Yeah, I would say, did I have a super conscious realization that my gender identity was her, so to speak, or that of a woman? The biggest conscious thing that I could remember is like a difference. Like what I felt and what was totally different, and I just didn't understand that. As far as expectations, yeah, I definitely, since was the only born male in my family, then it's like I was going to carry on our family's Hispanic name. I had these expectations, since my father was a college professor, that I would be a brilliant college professor. I'd be exceptionally smart like my father, and all these types of things. And as well, I think at some age, maybe my parents somewhere also knew I was different. So I think my father overcompensated and tried to try and make me even more John Wayne-like, which, we see how that worked out.
Well, did it cause any conflict?
It caused confusion, and so, I think some of my earlier years weren't particularly pleasant because it didn't add up.
Right.
It just didn't add up to me. And so I was just taken along in all these things that I had to do that were super masculine, like fixing engines and, working on my dad's boat and sanding and working on wood and all that kind of stuff. And then when I was young, my dad would take me to all these very, 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 the macho movies of the time, like James Bond and Clint Eastwood movies and all that type of stuff, hoping to really, give me the right training.
You noticed that. You felt like it was pushing it a bit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see friends of yours or other boys that you knew? Were their dads doing that? And is that what made it stand out, or is it just it stood out because it felt like it was
I think
a little
more
forced?
I think it stood out just because it was like, oh my God, why do I have to do this?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I don't want to do this. Why do I have to do this?
This is making me uncomfortable.
Yeah, extremely. And then eventually, if I had to work with my dad, then there's like a whole nother extreme. And if you're thinking, I hate to use father son, working with your dad meant fetching tools and prepping tools. And tools were never where they were supposed to be. So that always turned into an argument or never went well. Yeah.
Oh, I think that's called life.
Yeah, exactly.
A day that ends in Y.
Okay. And this is kind of where it was my escapes in childhood. One was music.
Okay.
So I played trumpet, and then my uncle was a musician. My uncle's a professional violist. And so somehow those were the things at a young age that gave me identity and relief and pleasure, in a place that didn't really feel all that pleasurable.
Okay. So music was a comfort to you.
Absolutely.
Very unlike, it doesn't quite fit in with the John Wayne
No.
movies that you were forced to sit
No.
through.
Although,
True Grit.
yeah, oh my God, True Grit and any James Bond movie that came up.
Okay.
Yeah, any
Okay.
James Bond movie that came up, I had to watch.
Okay. So I'm assuming, given the time period, you kind of moved on with your life and did what was expected of you.
Yes.
And dated women, started dating.
Yeah, I dated here and there, and I think even as I was dating, because what do? That's what you do,
Yeah,
right? That's
that's
what's
what you
expected.
do.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's what's expected of me. But none of my dates, none of the quote unquote relationships really never lasted. They would go a short amount of time and just it wouldn't work. So in some ways, when I was kind of at those age, high school and beyond, I just kind of like, well, I'm cursed, or I don't have any magnetism, or, something like, those were the kind of thoughts going through my head.
Now, so we're probably somewhere in the mid-70s at this point in time.
Yeah.
I mean, Southern California has always been leaps and bounds more liberal, more open, more
Sure.
accepting to alternative lifestyles. That's why I'm using quotations.
That's speaking the loaded term.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it is a loaded term. Did you ever take notice of that, or see something that you?
I can, yeah.
Did you think?
I can share a few things related to how was this kind of coming out of me. And I think really when I was going through puberty, that's when, as much as I could hold all that stuff in, that's, if it's going to come out, that's when it started to really
I
come out,
see.
because one, I started to change and my body's changing in a way I don't want. So that's pretty extreme experience. And
Yeah.
then I'm starting to notice things like I have this attraction to all things female on television. So all the targeted which commercials are so different now, but at the time, anything that had commercials that was kind of feminine would attract me, like ads for pantyhose or
It just wasn't the images of women in pantyhose. It was, I'd like to feel that against
Yeah,
my
yeah.
skin.
Oh, absolutely. Or
Yeah.
I want that. I want to
want
be
that.
that. I want to be that. And so I've we probably talked about this. Where did my name come from? And I had this. There was a newscaster in the late 70s and 80s named Tawni Little, and I had the worst double crush on her. Double crush meaning I wanted to be her. And yes, I found her an attractive female. So that, for some reason, I could never stop watching her on the news. So I watched her on the news all the time. And I think she shifted channels here and there, but I just followed her on the channels. It didn't matter,
So you admired her.
Oh yeah. Well,
Okay.
I think maybe infatuation would be a good
Infatuation.
word.
She was everything, a role model.
Yeah, it was kind
And-
of like my secret. Yeah,
Your secret obsession.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think a lot of us can identify with that secret obsession.
yeah.
At what point could you, or it must have happened at some point. Oh my God, I'm a woman, or oh my
Oh.
God, I'm gay, or oh my God,
I think.
I'm
yeah.
I don't even know if transgendered was the word of the day at that point in
Right.
time.
I think I was caught in this tug of war of trying to suppress it and trying to admit, trying to suppress, trying to admit, and then it gets into a very vicious cycle. And so anytime I would get close to self-realization, self-admitting, I just, oh no, that can't possibly be. And I'd work even harder to suppress it. And then and what happens when you do that? It comes out even more. And so I was extremely invested in making, making a really good show of what was expected to be to have this quote unquote middle class lifestyle and to have the career and the wife and the home and the XYZ.
So your father had overcompensated on your behalf, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe his own behalf
Could be.
as well. The family's behalf. We know how, appearances were important to many.
Mm-hmm.
I think I grew up a little bit under that.
Sphere.
Appearances were very important. But now you're putting those sort of pressures on yourself to be more manly and do what's expected of you.
Do the societal thing, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I-
I'm gonna
I-
make it. I'm gonna make an assumption
Mm-hmm.
that was not a very healthy thing.
That's about the fairest assumption ever, yes. It
Okay.
wasn't.
So I'm
It was
ending on
not
a high note.
Yes.
And on a correct note for our first episode.
Okay.
And we're going to come back next week and continue to talk to Tawni about what comes next.
Do you just feel like there is no air left to breathe? Do you just wanna to be left outside the grid? It's all for sure. You didn't know.